Hello, today's Bible study comes from 1 Timothy chapter 5, verses 22 through 25, and reads as follows. Do not be hasty in the laying on of hands, and do not share in the sins of others. Keep yourself pure. Stop drinking only water and use a little wine because of your stomach and your frequent illnesses. The sins of some are obvious, reaching the place of judgment ahead of them. The sins of others trail behind them. In the way, good deeds are obvious, and even those that are not obvious cannot remain hidden forever. And this is now going into the laying of hands and what would you do for the leaders of the church? How would you treat, future leaders of the church? And it says, do not lay hands on anyone hastily. And this is, some people may think the healing and all that, but this is really talking about in regards to ordaining or making or accepting them as a leader. The part of the work is to prove yourselves. Study to show thyself approved, to prove yourself. And he was saying that, let the man prove that he is what he says he is before you put the title on him, the moniker. We like to say our friends should be ministers, or somebody should be a minister, or whatever it may be, and that may not be the calling for them. We just push it on them, and a lot of pastors do this. But the truth of the matter is, let them prove that they are. And if it is their calling, some may only be doing it because somebody told them they should be. Nobody should tell you that. The Lord should speak to you about that. So don't be in a rush to put your hands on and ordain somebody on. And this ordaining is truly just letting us know and letting people know that God has called you to do what you are doing. That's it. And that's why we shouldn't be in a rush, because, as he said, we don't want somebody new in the faith. They'll be weak. They'll stumble. And there's more coming at you when you step into this. So keep yourself pure. And this is more of an observation of the life and the lives of others. And for Timothy, it was even a talk to him to pay attention to his life, to make sure that he is doing what is expected by the Lord. And we are not to share in people's sins. We got our own sins. I don't want to share in yours. I got my own anyway. So I don't want to add your stuff to me, and Lord knows I don't want to add anything to you. So keep yourself pure and not sharing other people's sins, because we don't want to be partakers of sins. We want to be partakers of goodness. So pay even closer attention to what you're doing. Understand we can get caught up by paying attention or being in other people's sins. Sometimes it can lead us down the pathway that we don't want to be. We can approve some of the things or ignore some of the things. We can talk about it, we can be about it, but we don't want to be caught up in it. And then he says, no longer drink only water, but a little wine for your stomach's sake and your frequent illnesses. Well, if you think about the water back then, and I know people are like, ooh, I'm going to give me something to drink. But the water back then, it didn't have what we have now. You could go to a place to get water, even a well, and it could be touched from anything from waste from an animal to decay in it to whatever it may be. So the water wasn't pure. And impure water, it gives us problems. Matter of fact, it can even cause sickness to death. Since they knew about this, he said, drink some wine. And the wine was there to help the stomach out. And that was meaning it was to drive away the impurities that were in it from the water. And that's what they're saying, that process of making water to wine, the fermentation of the fruit and all that, it's a process, but it would draw out or help heal some of the infirmities that were in the water. So use a little wine. And, Paul is saying this, and maybe Timothy wasn't drinking wine. Maybe Timothy wasn't feeling well when he drank the water. But Paul is saying, hey, use this. Use a little wine in your frequent infirmities. And if Timothy was having these frequent infirmities, then why not do something to help? Get somebody to give you something in compassion for these infirmities. And what it tells you also is, although as great as Paul was, although Timothy was going to be, it didn't mean that they had the power to heal at all times. It didn't mean miracles just walked out of their hands. The Lord has a set time for when things are to be done. And that's when they will be done. He's in order. So, if it was God's will for us to be healed, or for anybody to be healed, then that's when it would be. And if it wasn't, and it sounded like Timothy had some frequent infirmities, then, hey, understand that Timothy didn't have that power either. Paul didn't have that power because he's talking to him about it. Hey, I don't always have the ability to do these things. That is the Lord's will that I submit to. And we know that God did great things through Paul. There was no exception. Paul was great in the things that he did for the Lord. And you remember Paul had all kind of ways to heal people. But remember, they were all done by the will of God. Please understand, it was not done by the will of Paul. And Paul knows that and acknowledges that right here. So in verse 24 and 25, it says, the sins of some are obvious. Some you can see bold as day, reaching the place of judgment ahead of them. The sins of others trail behind them. Something done in secret. Not everybody knows. In the same way, good deeds are obvious, and even those that are not obvious cannot remain hidden forever. So, some men's sins are right out there in your face, but some lag behind. And that happens. But the same thing about this is that when you say that, good works will always be revealed. They will always be revealed. Sins are hidden, and sometimes hidden for a lifetime. And they will only be available on Judgment Day. You know when we say you got bones in your closet, those are sins. And as Paul warns Timothy, gives him a warning towards what he is about to step in and appointing of these leaders, the surface is not always what is truly there. And he's letting them know that surface isn't really that picture you want to see. It really isn't that person sometimes. And that's why you go back up to taking it slowly. Because we need some time to see. And then you need time to be able to make a call on that person. And it's not a judgment, it's discernment to see what their actions are, what their heart is like. And not that we can tell everything, but boy, there should be some good things. There should be some obvious things. Some good deeds, as it says. Some obvious good deeds that be seen, and they shouldn't be hidden. Amen.